What's happening, Shore Conference? You're listening to the weekly Coaches Corner segment brought to you by our friends at Varsity Link. Varsity Link is a social media app for athletes, and I'm sure you've seen some of their stuff around our site and on our social media. Varsity Link is one of our premier partners, and we're working hard behind the scenes with their tech team to deliver not only some incredible content, but connect all of our Shore communities. Some of our capabilities are driven directly by the work of Varsity Link. So if you're a Shore Conference athlete or an up-and-coming youth or middle school athlete following our coverage, we cannot emphasize enough that you should download the Varsity Link app and get your profile started. The app is already pretty awesome, but for Shore athletes, you're still getting in at the ground floor. Check it out today, and here's your hosts, Bob Batters and Scott Stump.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Varsity Link Coaches Corner on the Shore Sports Network, where each and every week, myself, Bob Batters, and Scott Stump, we talk Shore Conference football, take 2 or 3 programs, and really dive in to those respective teams, take the pulse of those teams, and take a look at what they did the previous week, which is usually something big, and why we're featuring them on our show. So an impressive week this past week in week 3. Really, it felt like the first time we had a few plot twists in the season, and we'll have 3 head coaches coming off big wins that we'll talk to. The first of which will be Colts Neck head coach Matt Ahern. The Cougars pick up their first win of the season and do it in emphatic fashion, a 35-0 victory over Manalapan in a rivalry game. So we'll talk to Coach Ahern about that. Middle of the show, we'll be joined by the man of the hour, the team of the hour, the figurative and literal team of the week, and that's Donovan Catholic and their head coach Dan Curcione. We'll talk about the Griffins' huge 21-7 win over Toms River North. And then in the latter stages of the show, we'll check in with Marlboro and head coach Jason D'Agato. The Marlboro Mustangs 3-0 for the 3rd straight season, playing some great defense, and we'll touch on that and see what's making the Mustangs click. So excited to talk to those guys and welcome in my buddy Scott Stump as we head into week 4. It's the old Yogi Bear. It's getting late early. Not that quite. We're not in October yet, but approaching week 4. A few teams will have played 5 games after this upcoming week. So starting to learn a lot about a lot of these divisions, about a lot of these teams. And like I just said, it felt like the first plot twist of the season happened in multiple divisions, but namely in that American division.
Yeah, I mean, you were at the game. What an unbelievable win for Donovan Catholic, ending a 17-game winning streak by Toms River North, and the fashion they did it. Toms River North averaged 44 points a game during that whole streak. They hold them to 7. So that shook up the American division. And even just talking to players at other teams around the Shore, they're like, it shows anything could happen on a certain day. Anyone can be beat. Obviously, Donovan Catholic is a very talented team. Not a stunning result, just more the way they did it was extremely impressive. But you're right. We're getting to the point now where these games are starting to be for sole possession of first place in a division or crucial for playoff positioning or seeding. And you're getting a lot of teams that are getting into desperation mode. If you started 0-2, 0-3, this is your season. You're trying to get wins right now, before things might be lost for you. But yeah, I mean, you were there. That Donovan Catholic performance, you got to put up as one of the best defensive performances in the Shore Conference by any team in recent years.
Certainly. It was a great team victory, and that becomes coach speak. You hear them say that a lot, but being there and watching it truly was to me. It certainly has some standouts. Zaire Day, Toms River North head coach Dave Ozerwitz was quoted as much. He said he was unblockable. We couldn't really stop him, and his numbers weren't of the huge variety, but he affected the game pretty much every snap. Roman Moyers had a big sack and an interception. Najee Morgan, an interception. They forced 3 turnovers, but it really was that case where, everyone, especially in that front 7, just slowing down that running game of Toms River North, which Toms River North is dynamic. They can beat you in a variety of different ways, but that's the engine of that offense.
Right.
And they held them in check. It wasn't just slowing them down. It wasn't a shutout, but they shut them down. 163 total yards and 7 points is about as well as you could have ever hoped to do.
And 0 rushing touchdowns, correct? Yeah. I mean, when was the last time that happened for them?
You probably got to go back even probably prior to when they began that winning streak, which was, week 1 or week 0, I should say, of the 2022 season. So from a defensive standpoint, you all you could do is tip your cap and say, wow, you guys, not only did they put together an excellent game plan, but they executed it almost to perfection.
And they have the personnel. They have that combination of the personnel like Zaire Day and those guys and the coaching staff Dan Curcione's coached a lot of championship teams during his time. But the big thing with that team is being able to stand up to Toms River North physically.
Yeah.
Most teams get pushed off the ball 2 or 3 yards every play against them. And that's why it's so hard, where you might get a stop here, a stop there, but then Michael Ford breaks a big one or Josh Moore breaks a big one. But they were able to get a stalemate and even get upfield a little bit against them, which that's a really, really impressive job. And, that segues right into the fact that this week you put them number 1 in the Shore 16.
Mm-hmm.
There's certainly a debate between unbeaten, or RBC's not unbeaten in the Shore Conference.
Yes.
They've lost to Bergen Catholic, the number 1 team in the state. But after that win, it was like, who's number 1? And I mean, you were there, like Donovan felt like they took it,
Yes.
Granted, RBC hasn't had their opportunity yet. They haven't played Donovan yet. They haven't played, they're playing Rumson this week. That's a big game. They haven't played Toms River North yet. But I mean, who has a better resume than Donovan Catholic right now?
And that was the conversation you and I both had kind of leading up to that. They have the best win in the Shore, one of the best wins in the state so far. So they've earned it. The nice thing about the way the divisions are structured, and you can attest to this, is in the past, when you had the traditional divisions, you worried about, okay, like what's the rest of this team's schedule look like? If I put them here, am I stuck having them here? Like you had to think ahead, where now is you can make the decision more on the fly that week because the opportunity is there for it to get settled on the field because these teams all play each other.
A team doesn't feel like you're cheating us and we're never going to have a chance to make our case for number 1. It's like, it's going to be right in front of you. If you win out your schedule and you're either one of those teams, you're going to be the number 1 team. And I'm just happy too, because Donovan and RBC, which are the main teams in the discussion right now, are in different state playoff brackets.
True.
Donovan's in non-public A, which is where, Bergen Catholic and Don Bosco and all those teams roam. So to ask them to win a state title is really hard. RBC in non-public B, where they've made the state finals the last 2 years, played DePaul and split. Although this year, DePaul's ranked number 3 in the state right now. So that's not going to be easy for RBC to get to the finish line and get it done either. But, you're so right, because in the past, you're just worried. You're going, okay, these teams are not going to play each other the rest of the year. So how's it going to shake out? And am I going to be backed into a corner where neither team's going to lose, and then I'm going to jump one just sheerly on opinion? But no, the beauty of the American division is it all shakes out. And then your own personal nightmare is if Toms River North gets right back in the mix, beats one of these teams, and another team beats Donovan, and then you get the tri-championship.
That happened, I believe it was 2 years ago with Rumson, Red Bank Catholic, and Donovan. And that's where it just comes down to, okay, it's time to make a choice. Get that 3-sided coin.
You're guaranteed to have 2 teams extremely mad at you at the end of the year. So we're hoping to avoid that scenario and see if somebody can get to the finish line there unscathed.
Yes, it's a fun division, and just when you think it's a little bit settled, something else crazy happens. So a lot to monitor with that. With Toms River North, one of the big questions too was Micah Ford, their outstanding senior quarterback, committed to Stanford. Reigning state player of the year, was injured late in that game. We haven't, again, it's high school sports, so we're not getting medical
basically
updates.
Sounds like a day-to-day situation, maybe a game time evaluation against Middletown South.
And we're not going to get any details, especially leading into.
You're not going to know until they
South
line up on offense for the first time against Middletown South. And if that's any kind of significant injury, I mean, that's a major blow. I mean, like you said, that's one of the best players in New Jersey. So, and the real engine of Toms River North's offense, even though there are a bunch of other talented players, there are guys that can step in. But he's right up there among the heart and soul of that team. So we're going to find out on Friday night against South.
Certainly, and I wrote that within the top the Shore 16 this week. If it's a short term, couple weeks thing, like they're talented enough where they can weather that storm. If it's a long term, like that changes things a lot, because they're a very deep and talented team, but you're not the same team.
And you just looking way far ahead. The team they played in the Group 5 finals last year, Passaic Tech, is a top 10 team in the state again, and they're kind of looming out there in the distance. So you're going to want to be at full power if it comes to that, where you're going to have to try to beat those guys again. And that's just to get out of your section, which is already hard. They had to beat that Kingsway team last year and all those others. So it's all conjecture right now. We're not going to know until we get the official status of Ford. But you're right, that was a big development at the end of that game.
Certainly. The American division gets a lot of the attention. Most of the divisions are extremely even. One of those, is the Colonial division. That division right below the American division. Got some really good teams in there. And one of those was Colts Neck. That huge 35-0 win over Manalapan. And we're going to dive deep into that. Coming up next, we're going to talk with Colts Neck head coach Matt Ahern. The Cougars off the canvas in a big way, getting their first win in the season. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll come back talking to Colts Neck head coach Matt Ahern here on the Varsity Link Coach's Corner.
The right way to top a sub is with real red wine vinegar made from red grapes and no food coloring. And the right way to film it is in slow motion. Obviously. Because authentic ingredients make a sub above.
Back here on the Varsity Link Coach's Corner on the Shore Sports Network, talking Shore Conference football, recapping week 3, looking ahead to week 4. And right now we are delighted to be joined by Colts Neck head coach Matt Ahern. The Cougars, tough start to the season, but played 2 of the best teams in the Shore, had a bye week, came back in a huge way, a 35-0 victory over district rival Manalapan. And, the season at 0-2, I'm sure looked tough, but it sure looks a lot better now. And you guys, right back on the horse. So Matt, first of all, thanks for taking some time this evening to join us, and a huge victory for you guys. So the bye week, I imagine, was pretty important. What were some of the keys you guys went over during that off week and enabled you to come out with a dominant victory over a team that was ranked in the top 10 in the Shore?
Yeah, guys, thanks for having me on. The bye week came at the right week. Obviously, we had to lick our wounds. We had to get healthy. We were a little bit banged up, and, the bye week really helped and got us focused on, what we really had to do, playing Manalapan and getting ready for Manalapan. So we came out and we played well on Thursday night. So, now we got to look forward to the rest of the schedule that we have.
And I was talking to your star running back, Chris Scully, last night for the notes column this week, which everybody can check out on shoresportsnetwork.com. And he said the return of Eric Lorero from the broken hand, your defensive end, tight end, senior leader, vocal leader, was big. What kind of a lift did that give you guys to have him back in the lineup?
Well, it's great getting everybody back. We also got Dave Fitchenbaum back. He had an ankle injury. Getting those guys back, it definitely helps. And, especially guys that have been 3-year starters, you can't just replace those guys with 1 or 2 guys. So, it was huge getting those guys back, and, it definitely paid dividends.
And he said that you were really stressed, like, guys, even though it's early, this is kind of like our season right now. Mm-hmm. Like, we can't let this one get away and fall into an 0-3 hole. I mean, what were you really stressing to them as far as the importance of this Manalapan game?
Well, every game's important, especially now with the condensed schedule where we have 8 games and, you're going right into the playoffs right after. And we're, on Saturday, we'll be halfway through our regular season schedule, and it's still September, so it's important that we, start to pick it up really quickly. And, going 0-3 in an 8-game schedule and thinking about the playoffs and, where we want to go at the end of the season, it was huge to try to rectify some things last week.
Against Manalapan, that's a team that, like I said, a top 10 team, a staple, for many years in the Shore as one of the best teams. You know them really well as a district rival. They were playing well. They easily could have been an undefeated team. They had that overtime controversial loss to Jackson. You guys didn't just win the game, you dominated. I mean, 35-0 against a team of that caliber is extremely impressive. What was working? It seemed like everything was working for you, but what was really going well for you guys where you can, come off the bye and turn in that kind of performance?
Well, when you have a workhorse like Chris Scully, and you're relying on your offensive line and you're relying on him, it's pretty easy to call plays and do things when things like that are working. So that aspect, it was pretty easy. Give the ball to Chris, and let the offensive line do their job, and the receivers and the tight ends and the fullbacks do their job. So, it was pretty satisfying to see them come out and, especially after the first 2 weeks, do some things well. We played well. That I got to give it to the kids that they played well against Manalapan.
Like Scott said before, the message, 0-2, and it's still early, but hey, like we got to get something going here. Was there, considering the opponents you played? I mean, Point Borough's the number 6 team in the Shore. Red Bank Catholic, everyone knows about them, number 2. So was there that sense of like, hey guys, like don't get down on yourselves too much. We played 2 really good teams, but you still have to come out and obviously show it on the field. So what was that? What were those conversations like? We're obviously trying to stay positive, but also, impress on them like there's some urgency here.
Well, we talked about it after the RBC game. When I was young, we used to play Nintendo, and and you used to play Madden. And if you threw an interception on the first play, you go hit the reset button because you want to reset. And I say, that's what we have to do. We have to reset our season. We got to come out, reset everything, and start playing well the last 6 games. So, that's what we were looking to do. And, the guys really carried it out last week.
And your defense, those first 2 games, obviously against 2 of the best offenses in the Shore Conference, struggled. But then you come out and get a shutout against, a team that had just scored 33 points the week before. Who really stood out on that end, or how did you make that, big change to where you're, going from struggling on that end to going out and shutting down a good team?
Well, that's where Eric Lorero came in, playing defensive end. He really, he really helped us out, to say the least. And John Sherrod had a great game. It was his birthday that night, and he was playing extra well, I guess, for his birthday. So they played well, and then the 2 Ethans on the back end and Fitch and Bryson at corner, they came to play. So it really helps out when Eric came back and Fitch came back, and we started getting our parts back together.
What do you think of this division in the sense that you have the 2 Group 2 schools in Point Borough and Raritan, and obviously Point Borough is one of the better teams in the Shore. You have the 4 Group 4 schools, including yourself. Competitive division, certainly. But in terms of preparation for the postseason, do you like it? In regards to the, the caliber of teams you're playing, also some of the differences you see in terms of offensive and defensive schemes?
Absolutely. There's obviously, everybody says it, but there's no weeks off. There's no weeks off within our division, and our at a division schedule also is pretty tough. So, getting those games in, it's going to help us in the playoffs, but we got to handle our issues right now and our, do what we have to do this week to try to get ready for that. But playing that tough of a schedule is definitely challenging. Going from Point Borough with the offense that they run, and RBC obviously being spread out and having the athletes that they have, and then going back to Manalapan. And this week we have RBR, and that's going to be a challenge in itself. They're very athletic, and they're going to spread us out and try to do some things to us. So we got to be prepared for that.
And the weather too on Saturday looks like it might be you might have some old fashioned football out there. The laundry, the washing machines are going to get some extra work potentially on Sunday, but it seems like the type of, like, the way you guys play is that, prototypical, like, all weather team. Like if it's raining and pouring, like, you guys are fine. Like, you'll turn around and play some smash mouth football. So do you feel like you guys, if it's a tough weather game, that you guys are built for that, with certainly the strong running game with the offensive line and Chris Scully?
I hope so. I think we'll find out on Saturday. I don't want to give you a short answer, but yeah, hopefully, there's obviously that weather aspect that, you're not used to playing in the rain. The kids aren't used to playing with a wet ball and stuff like that. So, those are the things that we got to take into consideration, but, we got to be ready. It's going to be a game on Saturday, and you got to be prepared.
Is there anything that you do during the week if you have a game like that? We see it at, I guess, college, NFL levels. These guys are dunking the balls in the water and stuff like that. Like, are those things that high school coaches, specifically you guys, will try to do, prepare if you might have the elements to deal with in a particular game?
Yeah, you try to make it realistic for them. So, you're wetting the ball down and doing stuff like that to make sure that they're using 2 hands, Dom under center, working his 2 handoffs and stuff like that. So, yeah, we do some things to try to get them prepared for any type of weather, really.
You guys were a playoff team last year, a division champion last year. You have this great senior class. What do you feel like it's going to take, I guess, to get to that one next level, be in a state final, take that one last step with a really good senior group?
Yeah, apparently we have to beat Winslow because we lost to them the last two years. And that's a feat in itself. We got to make the playoffs first. That's obviously key. So, we talk to them about, each week we can't overlook anybody. We're not good enough to just walk out there and beat anybody without actually trying. You know what I'm saying? So coming up, a team like RBR, it's going to be tough. So we take it, again, cliche, we take it week by week. And that's the only thing we could look at. And, kids are talking to me today about the Giant game tomorrow and Notre Dame. And I'm saying, I just got one team on my mind, and it's RBR. And I don't care about that other stuff. When our season's over, then I could figure out the Giants schedule and all that stuff.
Let me circle back to Chris Scully for a second. He's a player that I remember hearing, about him, through various people coming up through AYF, like, hey, there's this kid that's being a Colts neck. It's going to be pretty good. I know as a sophomore, he was in kind of a part-time back and then really took it, full force as a junior. What are the strengths that Chris has that make him such a good running back and one of the best in the Shore?
That his first carry and his 40th carry. Hopefully we don't get to the 40th carry, but his first carry and his 28th carry. His first and his 28th carry, they're the same carries. He's built for, carrying the ball a lot. And, he's 205, 210 pounds. He's got some speed. He's been working on that, and every year he's gotten better at something, and that's the key. And, it's catching the ball out of the backfield, or it's his stamina. Being able to carry the ball 20, 25, 30 times a game. So, he does something every year that gets him better. And, it's good having a person like that, back there.
We talked about Chris. We mentioned Eric Lorero. We talked about John Sherrod on his birthday. Big game for him on his birthday. Touchdown run, right? Double-digit tackles in the backfield. Pretty good one.
But just keep telling him it's his birthday, like every Saturday or every Friday.
Yeah, that'll be good. That'll be good.
Party pregame for just random kids. See what happens. But in that vein, is there a player that might not get the headlines or maybe he's not getting talked about, but that you guys know from within is an integral part of your team, and a player that if you didn't have, that impact would be missed?
Can I pick 6? the offensive line, the tight end, maybe even 7 with Jack Lefkowitz at fullback. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the offensive line. I know people will talk about him, but everybody wants to talk about Chris. But those guys, they come to work every day, and they're all at least 2-year starters, and some of them are 3-year starters, and they work their tails off, and they take pride in making sure Chris is getting his yards, and we get him the first couple of yards, and then Chris takes care of the rest. And, that's the key. And that's what they're looking to do. So, they're really our unsung heroes on the team. Both lines, the offensive line and defensive line. And that's where you're going to win football games, especially in high school, and especially coming up on this Saturday, with the weather coming out.
I feel like that this is probably the same for football at any level, but when you, as a coach, when you have a veteran line coming back, obviously Chris is one of the best running backs in the Shore, but a veteran line like that, big kids, 2- and 3-year starters, is that the most important foundation you can have coming into any season, those guys up front?
Absolutely. Absolutely. For as long as I've been coaching, that's been the mantra, make sure that, your offensive line is set, and then you can go back from there. Then you can worry about your quarterback and your running backs and your receivers and everything else. But, as long as you have an offensive line set, you have a fighting chance in any game.
Yeah. Last question for me. We talk so much about Chris. His name is circled on every opposing defensive coordinator's whiteboard. But as you get deeper into the season, opponents get tougher. It's not as easy to just line up and say, we have this one guy and we're just going to beat you, because the teams get better and better. How do you feel about, I guess, the diversification of your offense? Or it may not be, you got to throw 30 passes, but the 5 you throw really hurt the other team or make a big play or something like that. How do you feel, I guess, about that side of the offense as far as backing people off the line of scrimmage a little bit and making teams pay for selling out to try to stop Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and every game is different. Every game is different. You have a game plan going into one game, and you're saying we're going to, look to throw the ball 20, 25 times a game in that game. And next thing you know, you're running the ball all over the place, and you end up throwing the ball 4 times. And then the next time you say we're not going to throw the ball as much, and you end up throwing the ball 20 times. So, it's really game by game and how each game plays out. But yeah, it's important that we get Dom going at quarterback and make sure that, our receivers, do some things out there to get some of the pressure and the focus off of Chris. That's the focus going forward. Not that I'm telling you guys anything that other people don't know. Chris is going to get his carries, but, we got to make sure that we diversify enough that people have to worry about a bunch of different parts of our offense, not just Chris.
And Matt, last one for me, just a completely different subject, but, I've been fortunate, and Scott too, we've been covering short conference football for a long time. When you send me your preview information, in August, and I look at your coaching staff, and like so many names jump out as former short conference players, guys that played for you when you were an assistant at Red Bank Catholic, players that have played for you during your tenure at Colts Neck. How rewarding is it to have those guys back on staff now coaching with you and helping to mold the next generation of players?
I think it's great. I love it when the players come back and, they want to coach again because, it meant something to them when they were playing, and it means something to them as coaches, and they can, they know how we do things. Then they know that the intricacies of the offense, the defense, and, the way I handle things and the way, our staff handles things and wants things handled. And they already know that stuff. It's not like you have to teach them all over again. And for them to come back, it means a lot. It means that, again, it meant something to them when they played, and it still means something. It shows the younger guys that, that we're building a program, and it's, it's great to come back, and you always want to be around that.
Plus, it's nice when you yell at the players instead of them now.
I still yell at them. It's okay. It's okay.
You got to keep them in line. That's why you're the boss, right?
Keep everybody in line. Yeah, I yell at myself a lot more than I yell at them, though.
Good stuff. Well, Matt, always a pleasure to talk. Great win. Good to see you guys in the win column. Excited to see what you guys can do the rest of the season. And once again, thank you for taking some time out or even to talk to us.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot. I appreciate what you guys do, and keep doing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Coach.
That's Colts Neck head coach Matt Ahern. The Cougars 1-2 after the big win, looking to even their record coming up against Red Bank Regional this Saturday. So, Matt, we thank Matt for joining us. We're going to take another quick break right now, quick timeout, and when we come back, we'll talk to Donovan Catholic head coach Dan Curcione on the Varsity Link Coaches Corner on the Shore Sports Network.
Getting that perfect slice is satisfying, fulfilling, and rewarding too. But we don't do it for fun. We do it for fresh. Slice to order makes a sub above.
Welcome back to the Varsity Link Coaches Corner on the Shore Sports Network, talking Shore Conference football. Bob Batters and Scott Stump. And right now we're delighted to welcome in the head coach of the figurative and literal team of the week. It's Dan Curcione from Donovan Catholic. The Griffins were our Jersey Mike's team of the week in week 3, and that's because of their amazing, really, 21-7 victory over Toms River North. The win itself, not amazing. Donovan's a really good team. The way you guys did it was extremely impressive, and we'll talk to you about that now. So, Dan, first of all, thanks for taking some time after practice to talk some football with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
I was fortunate enough to be there and see that game live. Being there, I remember the game had kind of a weird flow with a bunch of penalties, but once things settled in, I mean, your defense just got better and better as the game went on. We talked after the game. Certainly there were standouts who made big individual plays, but just such a great team defensive performance. Once you went back and watched the film, did it confirm that, where it just seemed like it was all 11 guys on every play making things happen to hold an offense like that, to just 7 points and under 200 yards?
It was definitely a team effort. Going back, watching it on film, it's hard to single out one guy because there were a lot of guys that played really, really solid, A-plus games for us. So I think it confirmed the fact that I thought we played a really good team game.
Yeah, and obviously I wasn't there, but everything talking to Bob and everyone else, the biggest thing seemed to be, against most teams, Toms River North's offensive line gets a big push. They're knocking guys 2 or 3 yards off the ball on every play, but you guys were getting a stalemate or pushing upfield against them. Is that probably the part, was one of the big keys to the game to you, as far as if we're going to slow these guys down, we have to at least get a stalemate with them at the line of scrimmage?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I know it's cliche, but you always, think that you got to win the line of scrimmage. I have a lot of faith in my guys. The guys up front are all returning starters. They're weight room guys. They're guys that work hard. Hunter Johnson's, it seems like Hunter's been playing for 10 years for us. Sam Rock played a phenomenal game. Louis DiBiase played one of his best games, I believe, in his career for us.
The $1 Million Man. That's what
$1 Million Man. You got it. And of course, Zaire Day is he can wreck a game for other teams. Those guys up front, we knew going into that game that, I like our matchup against just about anybody with those guys. And we knew that they had to play their, at their best.
Tackling, against any team, it's important, but especially against North and Micah Ford, because not only is he an elusive runner and he's very fast, but he's a lot bigger than I think people realize. he broke a couple runs. I know you had a one play where you guys had him for a sack and he escaped, and I'm sure that gave you some grief even afterwards on the film. But how good did you feel like your tackling was where you didn't let them get those extra yards that they tend to get against most teams?
I thought we did a really good job at it at times. And like you just mentioned, they're a kid like him, he's bound to break a couple. We had him like on a clean blitz, and we hit him right in the chest, and it was like he didn't even he didn't even budge, and we eventually got the sack out of it because our guys were pretty relentless. But you kind of know he's going to break a couple of tackles throughout the game. You just want to limit that to not a really long run. I thought one of the really good things that we did was not lose sight of them when we dropped in the coverage, and our intermediate guys, our linebackers, and if we had a safety down or whatever, I thought those guys did a really good job of recognizing when he was flushed and when he would run. So he's definitely a problem. He's a really good player, and I hope he's healthy. We hope the best for him.
And I thought another impressive thing from you guys was your conditioning, the way you finished that game.
Mm-hmm.
Like you scored to take the lead, your defense gets a stop, and then Najee Calhoun breaks off another touchdown. It felt like you really owned the last 5 minutes of that game. Is that one of those things where you can almost turn to the players like, see, this is why we did all that running. This is why we were in the weight room, is exactly for this last 5 minutes of this game.
Those exact words were said probably about 50 minutes ago or so, whenever we were running at the end of practice. And they were said by one of the players. I think Zaire Day said it. This is what, last game was an example of why we run. They hate the fact that we still run after practice. But we don't have the biggest roster in the world, and we better be in good shape. A lot of guys go both ways.
Offensively, what stuck out to me was how you guys were patient and efficient. I mean, at the end of the game, you're able to break some long runs for touchdowns with Calhoun. But before that, it was like, you take your 3, you take your 4, you maybe you hit for 6 or 7 here. And it was you guys, you understood that you weren't going to be hitting home runs right off the bat. I'm sure you'd love to do that, but the fact the offense stayed patient on the ground, especially, in that second half when, the game was tied and it was like, who's going to strike next? And then in the passing game, Todd Lamberson, your senior quarterback, was again really efficient, hit the home run when it was there with the long touchdown pass to Emmanuel Jarena. Did you like the way your offense approached it just from that standpoint, being patient, knowing it's a close game throughout?
Yes, absolutely. And it was talked about before, and Chip LaBarca did a great job with it. We talked about it, 2 weekends ago, because we had an extra week to practice that, we felt the recipe to win the game was ball control, time of possession, win that, pick up third down and shorts. I think we kind of drilled that in. I thought Najee did an awesome job. Obviously you have the big runs that he made, but he had a lot of really good 3 and 4 yard runs where he took what was given to him and he picked up key third downs. So, I think it was well said by you, Bob, that was definitely, the plan, that we wanted to control the clock, control the ball, kind of keep them off the field, because, if you give Micah too many snaps, he's eventually gonna break one. So that was definitely, part of our thought process in the way the game was called, the way we approached things. And like you said, Todd made some, really key plays. The sprint out play, that was on third down before we took the lead. He sprinted to his right and made a really big throw to make it 4th and 2. That was, to me, one of the plays of the game, personally, thinking about it. It was a really well thrown ball, and it allowed us to choose whether we wanted to kick the field goal or go for it. Probably if we don't get that throw, we rely on the field goal there, and it gave us an opportunity to get 7. So I think, really good job by them executing the offense, executing the game plan.
And I know, talking to you a couple weeks earlier when you played Long Branch, you're saying, we're a little bit of the forgotten team here, kind of overlooked. We got some good players. We've been doing a lot of winning. Well, now you're the number 1 team in our new Shore 16. You clearly earned it. like Bob and I have talked about, no one has a better resume than you guys right now. How do you now adjust to what, we're in that top spot? People are coming after us now.
We're in the American division. If we think that anything's accomplished or settled or anything, all we have to do is lean on and look back at the teams that we're playing and the games we played against them in the past. We've played a number of these teams. We've played, Wall before. We've played Middletown South. We've played Rumson, and everybody in our program knows that nothing's going to be easy. So we'd prefer the number 1 ranking at the end of the year. Maybe I shouldn't have said that to you. Maybe I was being a little bit of a baby. But
control your own destiny, because that's what any team would want, right?
Trying to get a little motivation with the kids, but nothing's accomplished. This is a week by week process, and with the schedule that we have, if you look ahead, somebody's going to get you. They're all really well coached teams with a lot of really good players.
You talked about your front seven, how all those guys were returning starters, and the job they did against the run was exceptional. Tom North can throw the ball too, and they have dangerous receivers. Tariq Council, Jeremiah Pruitt, those guys can really burn you. And I thought you guys did an excellent job in that, where you got pressure. Micah Ford wasn't able to really sit back there and scan the field too many times, and you intercepted them twice. So how about the job those guys did? They had 0 passing yards in the second half, and you guys really shut them down through the air. And, they didn't, again, you stymied them on the ground, but they really couldn't get anything going in the passing game.
Yeah, it was a key to the defensive game plan. How we were going to hold up against their receivers, and the guys in our secondary, Emmanuel Jarena, and Najee Morgan, excuse me. Those are the 2 safeties, and they did a really good job of making all the different checks and quarterback and the back end of it. They both have experience. Mike's new to playing corner. Mike has experience playing Michael Thomas. Mm-hmm. And Isaac Correa is a new player. He's green. So it was really their first taste of a really big game. Not that the first game of the year wasn't big, but it wasn't, it didn't have all of the fanfare this one did. So I was really impressed with the job that they did and the job Dino Helstowski did with them. I thought it was a good job. It was not to give up a big play. And we had Roman in coverage too. Roman Moore is one of our outside backers, kind of like a hybrid guy. He had one of the interceptions, and he did a really good job. So they did a good job. I didn't know what was going to happen on Thursday, because it was probably the worst practice of the year. But they really came out, and it was the opposite of practice. I guess they were sick of practicing.
I don't know if you had my notes somehow you got, but I was going to ask you that, leading me in. Roman Moore is a very versatile player. I mean, he had a sack, he had an interception on back-to-back plays. How important is it to have, when you can have 1-2 players like that you can move around a lot, especially you as a high-level defensive coach? How much can that change things for your defense when you have that kind of versatility?
He could turn, having him on the field could turn the defense into a nickel team, right? With just calling it that way. He has the capability of playing in the box and then even playing on the hash at times. I love the versatility. The more versatile you are, the more you can do, with the kids. And he's a pretty good athlete to be able to, to do both of those things. There's not many guys that are capable of playing safety, playing linebacker, and doing it well.
And you guys were so young last year. You played that intense schedule. You always have one of the most brutal schedules. But how do you feel like that has paid off now in these big games with these guys back this season, having been through it?
I think that playing St. Augustine the first game was, that came right down to the last play, by the way. I don't know if you guys watched that game.
We weren't making the drive to Ocean City in the summer on a
Friday. That was a home game for them.
That's right.
The one of the few games that wasn't 2 hours away.
Yeah, we were in Tom's River. It was I really think that game really, gave us good experience, and they're a pretty good team, and it came down to the last play. So at this point in the year, we've already been into 2 really close games, and I think that's that says something. It gets the kids battle tested because there's more of them to come, and they've been in this situation. The moment it doesn't get too big for them when they get used to playing in games like that.
Yeah, I feel like their attitude toward the whole thing is amazing. That I think if the average team beat Toms River North, ended as 17, they'd be celebrating like they just won the state title and like this is the greatest thing ever. But it seemed like you guys, yes, we celebrated this win. It's great, but we haven't actually won anything. We have so much more to accomplish. It felt like they had a really like mature attitude toward it after such a huge win.
I didn't get a chance to look around and notice. I'm glad you said that. It's news. And I'm glad because that's how I feel, with the schedule we have going forward. If we think that anything was accomplished other than winning a really big game, there's more big games to come. And, the more games that you win like that, the more you get opportunities to play in more of them. And we'd like to do that. We'd like to do a lot, getting a lot of these games throughout this year.
You guys traveled to Wall on Friday, place really well. Former coach at Wall led them to a sectional title, 2016, I believe.
2016 it was, yeah.
My memory serves correct. So obviously a place really well. Wall 1-3, but they're in the American division like you guys, and it's a slugfest. Came really close to knocking off Middletown South. So they're a solid team. What are some of the keys when you go in there and play a team that Ed Greer is their coach, so you kind of know what kind of, anyone who's followed short conference football knows what kind of style they want to play. They want to be physical on both sides of the ball.
They're going to be, they're going to be well coached. They're going to be big. They're going to be physical. I know better than anybody else in our program, how up they get for playing home games. I told the kids that we always played well at home, no matter who we were playing. It was one of those just places where the kids have a lot of pride in their town, and they have a lot of pride in their program. And, don't take anything for granted. They're going to be a tough team. They're going to be physical. They're going to want to run the ball, and they're going to play good defense. So it's another challenge, of the American division. I said American division a lot this week, but it's the truth. It's good football, and, it's no other division we'd want to be in.
Yeah, I mean, it probably is the best. I was actually talking to Joe Zadalis, manager.com, about this. I mean, outside of that big North United, the Bergen Catholic, St. Joe's, all those teams, it might be the best division in the state. I mean, how do you feel like when you guys get through that schedule that you're as prepared as you can be for the state playoffs?
Yeah, I think so. I think we'll be prepared for as much as we can be with within the Shore Conference, playing other public schools. Like you said, it's not like playing it in the big division up north. I don't know any other divisions. I'll be honest with you off the top of my head.
I don't think I do either. Outside of the Shore,
you're even dipping into that division. You're playing St. Joe's Montvale, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Played them the week after this. So, and we played them last year. So I remember when, early on when I was at Donovan, it just, and I don't listen to a lot of stuff, but this bothered me a little bit. Somebody, said that we didn't play a really difficult schedule. And I said, if I have anything to do with that going forward, we're going to play as good a teams as we possibly can. We want that for the program. We want that for the kids. The kids want that. Make no mistake about it. The kids want to play in these games and play against these other programs that have really good players. They want a chance to prove themselves. So we embrace it. We really do. We enjoy it.
Dan, it was great to talk to you. And again, congratulations on the huge win. I know you guys have probably moved well past that now, as any good coach and good team will do. But again, thanks for joining us. Best of luck to you guys the rest of the way. And I'm sure we'll be talking plenty of times before the season's over.
I just want to say one more thing. I mentioned everybody on the defense, and I'm the linebackers coach. So I better mention JJ Cray and Joe Serwinski played a heck of a game as well. They won't let me live it down if I
every single player on the defense deserves to be mentioned and singled out. I mean, you've been a part of a lot of defensive masterpieces in your career, but that one has to be up there.
I appreciate it. We'll look back on that at a later time, but I appreciate it, Scott. Thank you for saying that. And I appreciate you guys having me. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Dan. Thanks a lot.
All right. Have a good night.
That's Donovan Catholic head coach Dan Curcione. The Griffins 3-0, heading to Wall this Friday, looking to continue their winning ways. We thank Dan, and we will take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk with Marlboro head coach Jason Degato. The Mustangs 3-0 and doing it with dominant defense. We'll talk to him after this. The Varsity Link Coach's Corner on the Shore Sports Network.
Varsity Link is a social media app for athletes, and I'm sure you've seen some of their stuff around our site and on our social media. Varsity Link is one of our premier partners, and we're working hard behind the scenes with their tech team to deliver not only some incredible content, but connect all of our Shore communities. Some of our capabilities are driven directly by the work of Varsity Link, so if you're a Shore Conference athlete or an up-and-coming youth or middle school athlete following our coverage, we cannot emphasize enough that you should download the Varsity Link app and get your profile started. And here's your hosts, Bob Batters and Scott Stump.
Back on the Varsity Link Coach's Corner on the Shore Sports Network. And right now, delighted to be joined by Marlboro head coach Jason Degato. The Mustangs coming off a 17-7 victory over Howell to improve to 3-0 for the third straight season. So quietly, the Mustangs been very consistent, looking to continue to build under head coach Jason Degato, and he joins us right now. So, Coach, first of all, congrats on the great start. It's not anything new for you guys. Like I said, 3-0 for the third straight year. So certainly trying to keep that going coming up this week against Lacey. But, we'll go back to this past week, 17-7 over Howell. And again, you guys did it with defense. You guys only allowed 14 points in 2 games. I think at the half, I was reading the reports of the guys covering the game. You guys like about 5 yards and 0 first down. So you also had a player had 6 sacks. I don't know if you are getting the TJ Watt,
yes.
Undercover in
we
here.
Call that
but
the full Micah Parsons.
Yes. But in any event, just a fantastic start for you guys and doing it with defense. So first of all, thanks for joining us, and just tell us about that defensive performance you guys had against Howell.
No, I appreciate you guys having me on. It's always a lot of fun, and I love talking to you guys. But yeah, really all 3 games, our defense has been playing lights out. The bottom line is, we have this FPT motto, fast physical takeaways, so our kids know that's kind of the standard. You play fast, you play physical, and we're always looking to be opportunistic and take the ball away. And they buy into it. They love it. And I think specifically talking about the Howell game, again, they were flying to the football. You turn on the film and you always see 11 hats running to the football. Our kids, they crave contact, which is awesome. Sometimes, we actually have to rein that in a little bit, which is always a good thing. You're not always getting frustrated. Why aren't we going? No, our kids, they bring it, especially on game day, they bring it. And that was really the big thing. And our kids, they look forward to playing. They love it. They're a real tight knit group, so they play for each other. And we just have a great time out there. And, that's the best part, when you're just playing great defense, flying to the football, making some big sticks, doing your job. Our kids are really buying in and they know where to be and how to get there fast and they're physical when they get there.
I have to ask, have you ever been part of a game where somebody had 6 sacks on your defense?
No, I have not been a part of a game like that. So, I wasn't counting during the game, but you just keep seeing it and you're like, man, he's got to have a lot of sacks. And then after the game, one of my assistants was like, dude, I think he had 6 sacks. And I'm like, it can't be real. And then, you go back, you do the film and you flip through it and you're like, oh my God, he had 6 sacks. And no, I've never been.
Yeah, your senior linebacker, Mike Consolazio. Is that how you say his last name?
Yeah, Mike Consolazio. Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Now,
good.
Was it on blitzes or he's just lining up on the edge and rushing?
A little bit of both. So okay. He's, we're a 3-4 defense. He's an outside linebacker. So, a lot of times he almost ends up being like a glorified stand-up DN. Mm-hmm. And that's really all it was. So I know it. So yeah, no, he's on the edge there. So sometimes he'll line up truly like a DN. Sometimes he'll come from depth and he's creeping up. But yeah, look, the kid flies around. Obviously he's a very good football player. And the game plan specifically called for him to be coming off the edge a lot. And he certainly delivered. He's a fast kid. He's a big, strong kid. And it wasn't all uncontested either. There was a lot of, guys were trying to block him and he was just fighting his way through. He made a couple effort sacks, that were just, the coverage was good and he's flying around trying to get dirty in there and trying to make a play. So Mike's been doing a great job for us on both sides of the ball because he's also our starting fullback as well. So I'm super happy for him, super proud of that kid. He's been having just an excellent start to his season.
When you're playing defense at that kind of level, certainly it's not just one guy. obviously you have Matt Cassidy, your senior linebacker, was a first-team All-Shore player last year. I feel like every time I've looked up and checked the results the last couple of years, like someone with the last name Houston is picking off passes. It was Jake last couple of years. It's been Luke so far this year. So those guys have stood out. But again, I'm sure it's like we talked to head coach Dan Curcione, Donovan Catholic. Team defense is the name of the game. So who are some other guys that have really stepped up so far? Because like I said, 14 points through 3 games. I don't care who you playing. That's very impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. It's truly been team defense, because like you said, Luke Houston, obviously he does a great job for us, but you have a 3-year starter out there and Nick Scaff. He's making sure everybody's lined up back there in the defensive backfield. Christian Lafante has been playing corner for us, has been doing an excellent job tackling. Braden Bradley works in there in the defensive backfield. He got himself a pick at Southern. Linebacker wise, we had Anthony Tropiano, who's Cassidy's partner in crime there in the middle. He's the guy, really, he's the glue guy. You know what I mean? He gets the defense lined up. He's yelling all the checks and the calls and everything. So he's been doing excellent for us. And on top of that, he plays physical football. Outside linebacker, we had a couple of guys rotating in this past week. It was Nick Diadema, who did a great job for us. Dan Alcide has been in there, but he was a little banged up this week, but he's back. Then up front, multiple guys getting in there. We had guys like Colin Burke, who's a young sophomore, really coming along real well. Our nose tackle, Rob Kenyon, 2-year starter. Big guy, Slav Kostenko in there, who's been doing a good job for us.
Great name.
So, it's yeah. So it truly is a team effort. You can't play defense like that, based on one guy. One guy can't wreck a game. You know what I mean? It's very hard for that to be the case. So those guys have been playing great team defense. They love it. They get after it. And it's been awesome to be a part of.
And we know Cassidy as a star linebacker, but I feel like this was also his breakout game running the ball.
Yep.
For you guys this past weekend. What do you have? 185?
Yeah, buck 85 and the touchdown.
What was it like to get him on track on that side of the ball for the first big rushing game of the year for him?
Yeah. So, look, as coaches, we know, what goes on around the shore, and we understand that, everybody coming in every game, they're going to say, oh, we got to stop 22. So we really made a concerted effort offensively throughout the entire preseason to find ways to win games when teams decide that we're just going to pack the box and take away 22. So we've been incorporating a lot of different things in our offense for that to be the case, and we're not just going to sit there and pound Matty 30 times a game, against the 9-man box. And, there's just nowhere for him to go. So, I think those things are helping us kind of loosen everybody out a little bit. And now that gets Matty running, and look, he's a tough physical runner. He gets downhill in a heartbeat. And it was great to see him really find some lanes this week. And when he hits the lanes, it's hard to bring. He's a hard kid to bring down.
And with trying to find balance, your senior quarterback, Braden Klein, I think has really taken a big step this season so far. Last season, you have the injury to your senior starter, AJ Schwartz. He's knocked out for the year. It was a huge blow for you guys. Braden comes in, just trying to hold things together, played well down the stretch, had some big plays in your playoff win. And now he's come in as a senior. He just seems more confident. He's making the plays you guys need him to make. How important is he to making this offense, just one unit where you guys can be balanced? And like you said, it's not 8-9 boxes for the run game.
Yeah. So, his development has been huge, right? And so like you said, that was a real tough situation last year he was thrown into. And not that he wasn't ready or anything, because he'd been taking backup reps his entire sophomore year. And, half of his junior year or 3 games of his junior year at that point. But, it's always different when you get thrown into the fire, right? So he was mentally prepared, but I think he really needed those reps and needed to get the live bullets and see everything. And once he got going, he really started to put together some chunks of nice games, where he would really kind of take over for a drive or two in a game. And you were like kind of seeing some flashes of some excellent football here where we're like, okay, we can build on this. And that was a big challenge in the offseason for him, was really a twofold challenge. And when we had our little discussions at the end of the year that I had with everybody, I said, look, number one, we got to get you faster because, we can't be one dimensional when we're in one back. You got to be able to run the ball for us. And he's been doing a real effective job at that. The read game has been there this year for us. So kudos to him for putting in the offseason work and making himself a viable threat on the ground. And then the second thing was, being smart with the football. I don't want you to be AJ. I want you to be the best version of yourself, and you're a different type of player than he is. So we want to build around the type of player that you are, put you in positions to make good decisions and just take care of the football and be smart and take what's there. And to his credit, he's done an excellent job of that, so far for us. He's really, put us in good positions. We put him in some positions sometimes where he's got to check some plays, find this guy and, bring the protection over there, run a certain play this way based on how they line up. So, he's more than just a game manager. He's making sure we're in good plays and things like that. And then on top of that, when his number is called, he's been delivering for us. He's been making smart throws. He's been delivering. He's been executing really well. We haven't had to throw the ball a ton, but that doesn't mean we can't. We can definitely throw the ball and we're ready to whenever we want to or need to. But he's been doing an excellent job for us. And I really think his growth has been the key to us offensively to keep us moving.
All right. We've been at this juncture 3 years in a row now, 3-0. How do we get over the hump and get to 4-0? And has Marlboro, were they 4-0 in 94 when they won it? Like, when was the last time Marlboro even started 4-0?
Honestly, I'm not sure. If anything, it might have been 94. I'd have to go back and look at that, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But yeah, I mean, great question. Like, the big thing for us is, like you said, so if you really look at this, our seniors now, this is their third time, right? And, they've kind of taken it and we've kind of been pressing it that, like, we've been here before. Now we need to get over the hump. Like, we need to make sure we stay locked in and focused this week and make sure we understand that, like, we haven't won anything yet. We've seen what 3-0 looks like. That's okay. And that's nice. But 4-0 sounds really good, and let's make sure we do everything within our power to put ourselves in a position to go and accomplish that this weekend. I've had alumni that I've coached throughout the years reaching out all week that are just, pushing for us and really want us to get over that hump, and I think that's a big challenge. Even this past week, Howell was a big challenge. These seniors never beat Howell. That was 2 years in a row that Howell beat us. And that was another challenge. Like, guys, we got to make sure we lock in this week. Like, this is a big week for us, a challenge, something we got to get a monkey off our back here. And really that's another one this week.
One thing I wanted to ask you about was, coming into the season, you guys had moved on from a really good senior class that graduated in June.
Yep.
Still a lot of good players coming back that we've talked about, but for this group, it seemed like last year, the way it unfolded was so important because, you lose AJ in the middle season. So you got to rally around that. And you did. You have to win big games down the stretch just to make the playoffs. Then you get there, you beat Washington Township in a game where you go right down the field and score, and Matt's run all over everyone. And then he gets hurt and he's out of the game. And it's like, you got to find a way. And you guys did. So how much of an effect did that have where it's like, look, we can battle through adversity, and it really didn't matter who went down. Like, you guys just found a way.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge because I think, like, look, you always talk about battling through adversity and like you said, finding a way. You always talk about ththose things, but, like, we lived it now. You know what I mean? Like, we had all sorts of different things thrown at us last year. Even like, look, obviously this weekend we're going to be experiencing bad weather. So our game got moved. Well, we dealt with that last year. We know what that's like. We know how to, handle that now and lock in. And you're right. I think that was huge for us to go through all that stuff and see that, like, it doesn't really matter what happens outside. You have to control what you can control and put forth your best effort, and everything else doesn't matter. You have to take care of what goes on in your own house. And I think the kids saw that, and again, I think part of all that too is getting guys involved and getting guys to believe, and they saw real live results of that. You know what I mean? Like you said, hey, look, the chips were stacked against us. We were 3-3. We had to play a tough Manalapan team, followed by I think Colsneck at the time was like 6-1. Mm-hmm. We had to play those games. We had to get in, win those games really to get in. And we weren't going to back down. We really were hungry to get in, and we went out there and we punched right back at the adversity. And these kids see that, that's what it takes, and your whole life. It's not just in football. Things are never going to go as planned. You always have a great plan, and no matter what it is in life, the plan never goes the way the plan is supposed to go, whether it be, changing your oil, changing a tire, or, the big decisions in life. Something always goes wrong. It's never perfect. So hopefully that's a life lesson these kids can take, and carry with them. Like, hey, sometimes you just got to put your head down and grind through it and get to the end.
And to me, this is a whole new world for Marlboro. You're a ranked team now, I believe.
Yeah.
Number
Number 8 now.
8 in the Shore Conference in our Shore 16. Marlboro traditionally the underdog role, that kind of thing. Now teams are coming after you, looking to make their name by beating you. Lacey could vault back into a conversation here by beating you guys. How do you handle that part of it now that it's not like Marlboro is like some secret anymore or anything like that?
Yeah. So, that was always fun to play up that underdog role, right? But we can't really do that anymore. So it's true, and look, I told the guys actually yesterday, I said, the bottom line is just like you said, everybody's looking to make their season off of us now. So the team you see on film every week is not going to be this team that you see on Fridays and Saturdays. You're going to get everybody's best shot. All right. Because now, you got that number next to your name. So everybody wants to knock you off. It's a little bit different than, being that upstart underdog. Maybe you get overlooked, right? You're feeling good about yourself. Now it's a little bit different, right? There's pressure, there's expectations. But again, you have to keep your head down. You have to grind. You have to, do what you're coached to do, stay focused, stay locked in, and understand you're going to get everybody's best shot. So, you can't underestimate anybody, whether they be, 8-0 or 0-8, whatever it is. You cannot underestimate anybody. And like you said, it's a little bit of a different world, but as coaches, we have to continue to preach that and get that out of them.
Jason, just last one for me, going up against Lacey, this week, obviously a traditional, Shore Conference power, led by a, legendary head coach, Lou Versil. They're coming off their first win. They have a dangerous quarterback. Nick Martins kind of does a lot for them offensively. What are some of the keys that stand out facing them?
Yeah. So first and foremost, like you said, it cannot be overlooked that is a traditional, Shore Conference powerhouse. They have a ton of history down at Lacey. And bottom line, like you said, Coach Versillo been there a long time. They're going to be prepared for us. They're coming off a victory, so they're feeling pretty good right now. And again, they want to take a shot, right? Like you said, there's a chance they can make their season off our backs right now. So going into this that they're going to be ready for us. There's no doubt about that. It's not like they're going to show up unprepared. They'll absolutely be ready. They got a good coaching staff. So, kudos and hats off to those guys. Keys to the game for sure is, as far as we're concerned, we need to make sure that we're locked in. We need to make sure that our guys, know their jobs specifically, can align to everything, right? Offensively, we got to make sure we know our assignments and we just got to execute. And I know that sounds all cliche and stuff, but at the end of the day, it is the truth. We got to worry about, and I think Bill Belichick is actually one that says that. Number one, you can't beat yourself first, right? You can't be playing against two teams, and that's the big thing is we got to make sure we can take care of ourselves, and kind of go from there. And as far as players are concerned, like you said, Nick Martins, he's obviously a very good football player. He's kind of like that. He's like that classic Lacey kid, How often do you see a quarterback that basically, he's an outside linebacker, but he's kind of like a defensive end out there? That's kind of rare, So that reminds me of that throwback Lacey kid. You know what I mean? They have that big receiver, Trevor Santucci, I believe his name is. Another big physical kid. They just look like Lacey kids. You know what I mean? And again, Lacey, they're always thick. They've always got those big, thick linemen up front, both sides of the ball. They got that big, tough linebacker coming downhill at you. That's just Lacey football. Growing up in Bayville, I went to Central. I know a little bit about Lacey. And some things change, but Lacey football is Lacey football.
They're all shaving in 6th grade.
Right, exactly. There's guys with beards, probably some tattoos and things like that, but they're Lacey. Lacey's going to be tough physical football. That's literally what their whole program is built on. They're going to show up. They're not going to back down from anybody. They're going to be tough. They're going to be physical, but they're physical. They're going to be coming right at you.
And last one from me. How crucial was this year in the sense that you're trying to build a foundation there where no matter who graduates, we're still going to be a competitive team and a good team? Bob and I have seen a ton of public schools over the years. Remember they had that one great class and they won as juniors and seniors. And then those guys graduated and they went back to, 2-8 for 6 more years until they got another one of those classes.
Right.
So how huge is this year as far as saying no, we're a program where when guys graduate, we're not just going to fall apart. We'll have the guys stepping right in and keeping things going.
Yeah, that was honestly, that's a great question because that's been huge for us. And that's something we kind of impressed upon the kids in the off season now. we want to be a program now, right? So what's going to happen here? Are we going to take that step back, become that 2-8 football team, or are we going to keep building and keep moving forward? And, one of the things we said in the offseason to the kids was, players graduate, standards and expectations don't. And that was our goal, really, to set that standard and that expectation this year that we should be competing for things. We should be competing for division championships, competing for state playoff berths, right? Get in the playoffs and make some noise in the playoffs. Like, those should be our standards and expectations now. And the kids, to their credit, they totally bought in. Like, that's what they want. Like, they got a taste of it last year and actually really the past 2 years. And they want to be that class that continues and maybe pushes it forward and sets the bar even higher for the next class. And that, when you start to get that, it all kind of feeds itself. You have, like, 2 years ago, you go 7-3. Well, the next class wants to reset that bar a little bit higher. Well, then you go 6-4, you get a playoff victory. Well, now the next class, they want to set that bar higher. And let's see where this year goes. And then I'm sure that next class, now they're hungry and they saw what it took, and they're going to want to step in and again, push that bar even higher. So that was really our big goal, is really try to establish ourselves now as a legitimate program, and that when kids graduate, there's still good football here.
Jay, great stuff, man, as always. Fun to see what you guys have done the last 3 years and playing consistent football and, like, some new blood, kind of in, the Shores, top 10, and you guys are playing some really good football, and, credit to yourself, your coaching staff, the players, everyone involved. I know it's not easy when you're trying to build something really from scratch, and you guys have done that. So again, thanks for talking to us about it and taking some time out of your evening.
No, thank you. I enjoy doing it. You guys are great, and I appreciate it. And I always end up watching. So,
well, good stuff. Jay,
good luck this weekend.
Thanks a lot, man. Take care. All right. That's Marlboro head coach Jason D'Agata. The Mustangs 3-0, looking to move to 4-0 with a game against Lacey this weekend. We'll take one last quick break. We come back, Stump and I will just touch on a couple of the big games coming up in week 4. That's on the Varsity Link Coaches Corner on the Shore Sports Network. Back on the Varsity Link Coaches Corner on the Shore Sports Network, just wrapping things up real quick. Thanks again to our guests. First of all, Colts Neck head coach Matt Ahern, Donovan Catholic head coach Dan Curcione, and Marlboro head coach Jason D'Agata. And of course, our sponsor, Varsity Link. It's the athlete's social media network. For more, make sure you head to varsitylink.com and download the Varsity Link app on the App Store or the Google Play Store. Big one this week, Scott, and you'll be there. Watching the alma mater right down the road, Rumson Fairhaven, number 4 in the Shore Sports Network, Shore 16, hosting number 2 Red Bank Catholic. Man, Borden Stadium is going to be rocking. Every time I've covered those two teams, the atmosphere has been insane, especially at Rumson. You better leave now.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think of it right after this. I'm just going to drive over there to try to get a good parking spot. I covered this game for a million years, like going back to the Asbury Park Press era, like from like 2001 or 2. It's always a tremendous atmosphere. It's been boosted up because both of these teams are state-ranked teams. Yeah. They're in the state finals like every year, in addition to their rivalry that goes back to 1947. Mm-hmm. My dad went to RBC, and he remembers the big Rumson games from the 60s. So, it's always been a great rivalry. RBC's had the upper hand. They don't play on Thanksgiving anymore, obviously. Mm-hmm. They're just division rivals now. I think RBC's won 15 of the last.
They've been some really good, some of them some
games,
epic
21-14, 21-20.
Yes,
was a crazy game a couple years
the
ago.
Jaden Key game, I remember that.
So in this one, this is Rumson's chance, obviously, to send a massive shockwave because RBC is, I think, number 4 in the state now, and Rumson 16. As far as leaping back into the American Division picture, if you get this win. Getting an absolute bushel of points as far as your state playoff seed. You just pretty much made yourself like the number 1 seed in your section. And just showing they can play with that caliber of team. For RBC, I think the discussion is now that it's lingering out there, who's number 1, Donovan, RBC. In some polls, it's RBC. In our polls, Donovan. So I think they're going out to try to really put it on them and show like we are clearly the number one team in the Shore Conference right now. And as I wrote in the notebook, it's interesting how if you look at the star on one side, there's probably like the awesome counterpart on the other. Owen O'Toole, one of the best quarterbacks in the Shore for Rumson. Frankie Williams, one of the best quarterbacks in the Shore for RBC. Emmanuel Ross, one of the best wide receivers in the Shore for RBC. Nick Rigby for Rumson. And there's like 4 or 5 more of those comparisons. But I mean, you've covered these games too and seen them over the years. Usually when RBC wins or, keeps the upper hand, it's because their offensive line dominates running the ball.
Yeah. And that's been what set them apart in a lot of these games. And they have a standout unit again, led by Lorenzo Portella and Tyler Burnham. And on the other side, Rumson's got a really good defensive line too.
Cooper
So again,
Brunell,
like strength on strength.
One of the best D linemen in the
Absolutely.
Shore.
Reed Elsis back at linebacker. It's interesting because you talk to both teams and they're like, hey, that's our strength. Our guys up front can play with anybody. Like they're both saying that. So it really is going to be.
And I do think Rumson's defense does have something to prove in the sense that they lost 42-21 to Toms River North and gave up 317 yards rushing. Michael Ford had a huge game. So this is the next chance to kind of like wipe the slate clean of that. If you can stop RBC's rush, RBC's averaging, I want to say 6.8 yards a carry on the season. And that's including the Bergen Catholic game where they were basically bottled up.
Which really skewed it.
So the last 2 games against Colts Neck and Wall have been well over 200 yards rushing. Even though it's a committee of 3 or 4 guys, they've been effective because that line is so good.
The end result is still what they're looking for.
And Ross is a game-changing guy because you can think you're covered. You got 2 guys on him. He just goes right up over people, makes a contested catch that can swing the whole type of game. And conversely, Owen O'Toole, I talked to him about this matchup and, obviously they need him to throw the ball and make plays in the air because that's what they do best. He threw for 226. You were at the game against Toms River North, a couple touchdowns.
Really played well.
With a rush bearing down on him a decent amount. And he said, we've played Toms River North, we've played Middletown South. These are teams that bring pressure like crazy. So yes, while RBC is really good and Davin Bruton will be flying through gaps and you got to get the ball out quick, O'Toole's shown he can handle that. So I think that's, if they can run the ball enough effectively so that it's not 3rd and 8 where you can kind of tee off and send everyone at O'Toole, that will be a big difference. But yeah, I think like you said, that place is going to be rocking. There's tons of all-shore talent in that game, Division I players, on the field. So you can't ask for a better thing. And like Frankie Williams said to me, this is our biggest rival in every sport at RBC. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it should be a good one. A few other big division games want to touch on. Homedale at Manasquan, originally a Saturday game at Manasquan, has always now moved to Friday in the afternoon, which you'll see. Check shoresportsnetwork.com because the schedule is probably going to change about 5 more times.
Yeah, every time your weather app updates, like the schedule will change again.
So that's a big one. Homedale undefeated 3-0, Manasquan 2-1, only lost to Point Borough. So that's for the top spot in the Constitution Division. You go down to the Independence Division, Brickmore and Freehold Township in a huge clash on Friday night. Brickmore 4-0 for the first time since 2003. Freehold Township, they had that season opening loss to Middletown North, but it was out of division. So Freehold Township, Brickmore, still right there jockeying for that top spot in that division. And then you go down to the Patriot Division, a game that's still on Saturday, moved up to 10 a.m. Keyport, 3-1, only lost out of division to Freehold Borough against a Manchester team that's 4-0 for the first time in program history. Both teams, averaging right around 40 points a game, explosive offenses. We'll see if the weather, restricts that a little bit, but that should be a fun one. And that's the biggest game both of those programs have had in a while, certainly for Manchester.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Manchester's never been at this juncture in the history of their program where they've been 4-0. They've never won a division title.
Yeah.
And this game is for first place, sole possession. So that is huge. If Manchester gets this, you're now in the driver's seat to accomplish yet another thing that you've never done before. The biggest shame of this, I really hope it's not on some muddy field, that the rain holds off long enough, because we're talking some of the most exciting, explosive players in the Shore. Nas Treadwell, Andre Matthews, Makai Henderson for Keyport, Josh Love for Manchester, who has like over 800 combined yards and 14 touchdowns.
He's having the Christian McCaffrey season.
Yeah, he's going complete. Yeah, he's the number 1 draft in the fantasy league of
Patriot Division Fantasy.
The Patriot Division Fantasy League. But yeah, that's what you kind of hope, is that the surface is solid and everybody can, both teams' speed isn't taken away, because you'd like to see these teams both at full strength for a game of this caliber. And you're right. Keeper was in a state finals not too long ago, but it's been a little bit since they've been, right near the top of the discussion for division titles and things like that. So I think that's a tremendous matchup, and fingers crossed, hopefully the rain holds off.
Yeah, should be a fun one. A good week of football. Like I said earlier, it seemed like last week was that first big plot twist in the season. And it's like usually when that happens, the floodgates open, and a lot
I think
of
it
crazy
gave
things
other
start
teams
happening.
belief. Like you talk to other players and they were like, well, if that could happen, why can't we like stun somebody this week?
Exactly. So should be a fun one for, all that info. We'll have the scoreboard. Our picks that are sure to go wrong will be up.
Yes, we're deleting all of last week's picks from the internet permanently.
On Friday morning. Nope, those are permanent. So make sure you head to shoresportsnetwork.com. Check out all the happenings, all the news, all the scores, stories, and everything else throughout the weekend. So once again, thank you to our guests. Thank you to Varsity Link, our sponsor. For Scott Stump, I'm Bob Batters. Thanks for watching and listening to the Varsity Link Coach's Corner on the Shore Sports Network.